Well, let's take a look at another Call of Duty. So yeah, this video was originally planned to come out a few days ago, but safe to say is that I kind of got wrapped up in other things going on. So let's take a look at the Black Ops saga of COD games, or at least most of them. Obviously, I won't be covering Black Ops 4 because, well, for those who don't know, I only really care about story in games, and since Black Ops 4 doesn't really have a campaign, it's been excluded from this list. So, let's go back in 2008 and take a look at War at War. So, basically, the Black Ops prequel. Jokes aside, War at War is, of course, technically the first entry in the Black Ops series, even though the only connections it has in it are, of course, a few characters who we'll mention in this video. Well, I'll mention. So, basically, War at War focuses on two campaigns in World War II. Obviously, the first one it focuses on is, of course, the Pacific Theater, while the second one is, of course, the Eastern Front. And the characters you're playing as are, of course, Private Miller and a dude named Dmitri. His superior is, of course, Viktor Reznov, who makes an appearance in Black Ops, and I think is referenced in Black Ops 2. Dmitri is also in Black Ops, although he dies in that one. Overall, War at War really has nothing to really do with this one. The story is just, it's in World War II. That's literally the story. So we'll be moving on to, of course, Call of Duty Black Ops. Black Ops, to many, is probably one of the best CODs of all time. To me, it's a pretty decent game, but of course, I gotta give respect to how great it was. Obviously, Black Ops focuses on a new character named Alex Mason, and he's pretty much forced to remember what these numbers mean. And long story short, he was brainwashed after being captured and sent to a Russian gulag known as Vorkuta. There he meets Viktor Reznov, who also had been captured and basically left there to die, and he's brainwashed to kill three men: Steiner, a German scientist, Dragovich, the game's main antagonist, and Kravchenko, Dragovich's right-hand man, pretty much. There's also this thing called Nova 6 that has a pretty big importance in the story, but overall it's just kind of focusing on what the numbers mean. Basically, long story short, good guys win, bad guys lose, and we're on to Black Ops 2, which came out in 2012 and kind of changed up what Call of Duty was at the time. Because technically, if I recall correctly, I think Cold War does take place before Black Ops 2, but I accidentally already said Black Ops 2, so I guess I'll cover this one. I'll cover this one. I really have no idea why I'm saying that. So basically, Black Ops 2 has two different campaigns. One focusing on Alex Mason again, and the other one focusing on his son David. The one focusing on Alex pretty much takes place in the 80s, the final decade of the Cold War, pretty much. And of course, one taking place in the 2020s, as everything's kind of getting all futuristic and stuff. The only thing really connecting these two together are, of course, the game's main antagonist, Raul Menendez, who serves as the antagonist for, kind of both plot lines, as he's featured heavily in, both of them. And overall, it's a decent campaign. Not much to really say about this one, other than the fact that, they are just kind of going after Menendez for the most part in this one, and it also has different endings depending on what you choose, which is pretty interesting, and as far as I know, is the only COD game aside from Cold War to actually allow you to pick a different ending. Here's hoping to do more of that in the future. Onwards to Black Ops 3, which is pretty much the black sheep of the series. Coming out in 2015, Black Ops 3 really was something different. So basically, now, this one's probably the most confusing entry in the entire series, which is saying a lot because of the stories for Black Ops and Black Ops 2, as well with the giant mind trip that is Black Ops Cold War. So basically what happened in this one is that you, the player, have been dead the entire game, and somehow you're in Taylor's consciousness. There's this thing called the DNI, and it's apparently like taking like people's collective consciousness and like putting it like somewhere else. It's a giant confusing mess of a story, and overall it's probably one of the more uninteresting but interesting CODs. Moving on to Cold War, which came out in 2020, we of course return back to basics, but also kind of, we have a bit of a moment towards the finish line. So, of course, focusing on Cold War, this one, of course, takes place yet again in the 80s. Actually, I think a couple of years before Black Ops 2. You don't really play as Alex Mason, except for like one mission. For the most part, you're playing as a new character named Bell, and pretty much for the most part, you're just going after this guy named Perseus. And of course, there's two endings for this one. You can either work with Perseus, or you could stay loyal to Adler and the others, and of course kill Perseus. The game ends as Adler tries killing you, and that's really how Black Ops Cold War ends. Black Ops 4 did have a bit of a story as far as I remember. Like, I think certain characters got cloned or something, but honestly, that just kind of sounds really, really stupid. So, how good were these games? Should you play them? And should Treyarch constantly make more of these? Well, basically, going back to War at War, it's a alright entry. It's not my favorite in the series, but it's definitely one I don't complain about having to go back to, as it does have some really interesting things that it does do to the series. It's also the first one that had zombies in any of the games, something that the other studios kind of, vultured. And from what I've heard, its multiplayer was actually pretty decent. Black Ops, well, it pretty much kind of set a huge standard for stories in Call of Duty. And while I do prefer the original Modern Warfare trilogy over the Black Ops games, Black Ops is definitely a strong contender for one of the best stories in gaming. Black Ops 2, on the other hand, this is where I might get controversial, but I will definitely say Black Ops 2, I feel like its story could have been a little better. The branching storyline isn't a bad idea, it's actually really cool, but where I think the game really goes wrong is all the really boring side missions. In my opinion, they really add nothing to the game and just kind of make it feel a lot longer than it needs to be. Other than that, Black Ops 2 is a pretty solid entry. Can't really say much about zombies or the multiplayer, as I never played those, but from what I've heard, both of them are pretty terrific. Same goes for Black Ops. Black Ops 3, on the other hand, honestly, there's a lot to kind of pick apart and make fun of. Obviously, first of all, you have the confusing story. And honestly, that's probably the biggest issue with Black Ops 3, is that its story makes no sense and it's just kind of fucking stupid. Apologies to anyone who really enjoys this one, but after playing Black Ops 3 for the first time, I kind of just had no reason to ever go back to it again. I know Infinite Warfare gets a lot of flack, but at least the story is actually somewhat passable. Black Ops 3, it just feels like it was supposed to be something else, but Activision didn't want it to be, or someone didn't want it to be something else. And it's just, yeah, slap Black Ops on it and we'll pass it off as a sequel. Under the right execution, it could have been something interesting, but it just falls flat in most regards, and it's just probably one of the more forgettable entries in the series. Again, this is just talking about the single player. Multiplayer, I've heard mixed things about. I've heard some call it one of the best multiplayers. I've heard some call it an abomination to the series. Zombies, on the other hand, I haven't really heard much about, but yeah, that's really all I gotta say about Black Ops 3. I could poke more fun at it with its convoluted story and the really god-awful twist, but I feel like I've made fun of it for a day. Onwards to Cold War, we of course have, it's interesting, but personally, I think I prefer Treyarch just do something else that isn't Black Ops. The series was good, but it just went on too long. And unfortunately, it doesn't seem like it's going to stop anytime soon, as, well, according to some leaks, now take this with a grain of salt because most of these are probably giant crap, apparently we'll be seeing more entries, which, personally, if we do, let's just hope that they're more in quality of Black Ops and One at War, and not like Black Ops 3 or 4. Other than that, that's all I have to really say for this review. I'll of course be covering the other COD games, not like next, but in the upcoming months, so stay tuned for those. I'll also be, of course, going through some other games and reviewing them, as well as trying to do more top 5s. Also, I want to give a mention to my second channel, The Moth Queen Effect, where I review anime and Pokemon. So if you're interested in that, go check out that channel, and well, have a nice day. I hope you all had a happy New Year's, and just remember to stay safe. Goodbye.